Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, keeping our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. I know I missed the past couple Sundays. I'm sorry to have missed the past couple Sundays. I heard they were great. And the recap on the mission trip and recap on camp and all of that. And but it was good to get away. And this morning I kind of want to just reflect on the past few weeks for me. Getting away always gives you the opportunity to think and reflect and evaluate life and all of that. And certainly this time away afforded me that opportunity as well. And so I just want to reflect on that a bit this morning. It seemed like the summer kind of got jammed into these past 3 weeks for us. This is not typical for Chandra and I, but this is just the way it went. So Chandra and the kids left on Saturday, July 20th. I caught up with them on Monday, the 22nd, and we rendezvoused with my family in Florida. All of my family came from Texas, with the exception of my younger brother and his wife, who were up in Western Canada. They couldn't make it, but everybody else, we just had a week in Florida, just on the beach and vacation, and all the grandkids were there. It was a great time. Then we sent our kids with Grandma and Grandpa back to Dallas, and Chandra and I went from Florida to California, to Lake Tahoe, for a wedding. And then a girlfriend of Chandra's came in, and they spent a few days there. And I went to Boston for the Boston seminar, which is, an educational week in congregational life and history and polity. And then we met back up in Dallas. And last Sunday, I drove our kids from Dallas to camp in Arkansas, and then back to Dallas. And I got back here this past Monday morning. And then this afternoon, we'll go pick our kids up who are coming back from Dallas after camp. And so this was just the last 3 weeks. This is just the way it went. And it was a lot of fun, and it was a great time, and we saw a lot of people and all of that. But it just gives you the opportunity to reflect. And as I reflect on the past few weeks, as I have reflected over the past week on the past couple weeks, I've just been reminded of a few different things. And, we had a great time in Florida with all my family and my parents and my siblings and their kids. All the cousins were there. There's 10 grandkids, and it was a great time. It was a great time together. But I was just reminded that things have changed, right? My relationship with my siblings is different than it used to be. And the number of years that we will have to get together like this is limited. And like the older the kids get, the more difficult it will be to get everybody together, right? When I was the age that my kids are now, I saw my cousins all the time. And now I haven't seen most of them in years. And this is just the way life goes, right? I mean, I feel like we're at a great stage of life. I'm 43 years old, and Chandra is around there. Our kids are 10, 8, and 6. Life is busy. There's lots going on. I know that many of you have been through that. Some of you are there right now. And it's a great time of life. Every year on my birthday, I say I finally reached life's perfect age. I mean, it might as well be, right? This is where I am. But I was just reminded that life changes, right? And even in these really, really positive relationships that we have with my family, there's just an inherent sadness, just the temporality and the brevity of life. And I'm just reminded of that. I was reminded of that too at dropping the kids off at camp a week ago. This is the camp where Chandra and I met, and we're so grateful that our kids are able to go, and we know a lot of people there, and I mean, it is a great place, and a really, really fun time for the kids. Those of you who have been to camp or over the years, you know that camp is a great time, and it's a great experience, and the friendships and relationships that you make there, it's such a positive thing, and has been in our life, and this place is just a wonderful place. So being back there last Sunday, even just for the day, dropping the kids off, you're kind of back in that world, and it's so great, and you visit with people that you haven't seen at least since last year, and you're just reminded of how good camp was, and you're reminded that it will never be that way again. As good as it was, life has changed, and life continues on, and there's just an inherent sadness, And how do we deal with that? The owner of camp is a guy named Sam Torn, and he and his wife Susan have owned camp. This is their 35th year. And Sam and I are good friends, and he turned 70 this year. And he has told me a few times over the years, he says, hey, remember, you're going to do my funeral. Wherever you are, you're going to do my funeral, right? And so he reminded me of that again when I was there last week. Remember, you're doing my funeral. And we're going to sing the song Friends. Any of you recognize the name Michael W. Smith, the Christian artist Michael W. Smith? Some of you? The song Friends, he wrote a song called Friends. And it goes, friends are friends forever, if the Lord's the Lord of them. Anybody recognize that song? Okay, well, let me tell you. That song came out in 1987. And from 1987 to 2004, we sang that song at everything. Anything that had a hint of nostalgia at it. Somebody was moving, or some sort of gathering or party. At the end of every camp session, we sang that song. Whatever song you think is overused here, multiply it by 10, and you've got Friends or Friends Forever. Okay. So Sam was like, remember, you're going to do my funeral, and we're going to sing Friends. And my kids are going to be like, oh, I can't write this. But it is this great song. And even in that, though, him reminding me of that, right? It's this reminder of the temporality and the brevity of life, and that things will never be the way they were, even in these really positive relationships. And I think what's the encouragement for me in that? What's the encouragement for you in whatever's going on in your life, whatever stage of life you're in, as you reflect on the past and as you are involved in the present and you look to the future? Where do we find encouragement for that? And I think, this is life. This is life. It is the way it is. This is the race marked out for us. And I think the encouragement of the Scriptures would be, hey, run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Keep going. Being reminded of keeping your eyes on Jesus, the author, the pioneer, the perfecter of our faith. I think for me, what enables me to be grateful for the past and those relationships, even in the midst of the sadness, what enables me to rejoice in the present and where we are, and what we're doing, what enables me to have hope for the future, I think is the love of God for me shown in the person of Jesus. That, friends are friends forever, if the Lord's the Lord of them. That somehow we trust in God's unending love for us through the journey in the past, where we are in the present, and as we look to the future. And that gives me hope. And so wherever you are, persevere, keep going, keep your eyes on Jesus. You're at life's perfect age, right where you want to be. God is with you. And I think that's a good, at least as I reflected on things this week, it was a good reminder for me. Be grateful for the past, rejoice in the present, have hope for the future because of God's love for us. Run with perseverance. So that was the first half of my reflection. Then the Boston seminar, right? This kind of baptism educational week in congregational history and life and polity and all of this. And it was a great time. It was a great time. I got there on Monday because we toured some places in historic sites in Plymouth and in Boston. Of course, Congregationalists, we trace our history to the Mayflower and the Pilgrims who landed at Plymouth Rock in 1620, right? Here's the rock. Oh, run with perseverance. Good. Here's the rock. One more. One more. We'll get there. The rock, it's really kind of anticlimactic. There it is. There it is. We'll zoom it in for you a little bit. One more there. I mean, it's kind of everybody said, hey, it's not that big. It's not that, Was this the actual rock that they landed on? They say it's broken over the years. At least they stamped it at 1620. So we, remember it as that. So, but it was great. I mean, it was great to learn some of the history of Congregationalism and see some of these spots and all of that. We study history to honor the past. We study history to understand where we've come from, right? And we study the past to learn from it, to better enable us to move towards the future from the lessons in the past. And that was helpful for me to look at Congregationalism and see how Congregationalism has evolved over the years. I mean, there's certain things that have been the same and all of that, but there's been an evolution of belief and practice and all that type of thing within Congregationalism. And that was helpful for me to know and to reflect on. And I think, as I thought about that, I think, here we are today, and what is Congregationalism's niche within Christianity as we move forward today? What does Congregationalism have to offer? I think we should think about that, and we'll continue to think about that. And then what do we have to offer? What's our niche as a church within Congregationalism? And I think we're going to think about that a little more as well. But Congregationalism has evolved. Back in the late 1600s, early 1700s, it was much more difficult to become a member of a church than it is today. And you had to have this kind of dramatic experience of regeneration or salvation that you had to explain to the pastor, and then he would give you, yeah, you're in, or no, you're. It was just really difficult to become a member of a church, which was tough because your membership at your church was much more tied to your role in the community. And so church membership was on the decline just because it was so hard to become a member. And so then they thought, well, somehow we got to make it easier for people to become a member of a church. So they came up with what was called the halfway covenant, which made it easier for people to become a member. Because people were worried if you weren't a member, well, then you couldn't baptize your kids. And then if you couldn't baptize your kids, well, at that time you were worried about eternal damnation kind of thing. And so people wanted to get their kids baptized. So they had this halfway covenant. You could sort of be a member and get your kids baptized and all this type of thing. And I mean, this caused no shortage of controversy, right? People thinking, well, we're heading down a slippery slope. Anybody can become a member of a church. It doesn't matter, right? And other people thinking, no, we've got to be progressive. We got to move forward. I mean, some of the same language we use today about different things, right? It's just this evolution of life and practice and belief. And how do we learn from that as we move forward as a church and as people within Congregationalism? And I think for us as a church, I think for us as individuals, as we think about the present, we run with perseverance, keeping our eyes on Jesus. And Proverbs 3 tells us, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. So as you look over your shoulder at your life, as I look over my shoulder, as we look over our congregational shoulder at the past, and reflect on it as we move forward, we're going to persevere. We're going to keep our eyes on Jesus. We're going to trust in the Lord with all our heart, not leaning on our own understanding. But in all our ways, we're going to acknowledge Him, trusting that He will make our paths straight. Even though over your shoulder, you can look over congregational shoulder and think, the path looks kind of crooked. You know, the things that have happened. But I think this is what God does, is He takes that which is crooked and makes it straight. He takes that which is bad maybe and brings good out of it. He takes that sadness and turns it into joy. And so we're going to trust Him to do the same with each of us and with our church as we move forward. So those are my reflections on the past few weeks. Let's pray together. God, again, we choose this morning to be grateful for your love for us, for your presence with us in life. We choose to trust in you, to realize that we don't have all the answers, that trusting in our own understanding would only get us so far. Lord, so we trust that you're in it with us, that you're making good out of our lives, and even the difficulty, even the things that seem crooked, that you're making our paths straight. And so, God, help us to run with perseverance. Help us to keep our eyes on you. Remind us again of your love for us.